Maya had exactly $50,000 and no idea it would become 2 million. She was 32 years old, earning a completely normal salary, nothing special at all. She was not a genius, not an insider, and not secretly rich. Her friend Renee started the very same year with the same $50,000. Her other friend Tanya started with $50,000 too, standing right beside them. Three women, one identical number, standing on the exact same financial starting line. 30 years later, only one of them was sitting on $2 million. It wasn't Maya's income that created that gap, because all three earned alike. It wasn't luck, it wasn't timing, and it wasn't some secret hidden stock. Maya simply did three boring things that both Renee and Tanya quietly skipped. Each habit sounds far too simple to move a single serious dollar. Yet each one silently shifted hundreds of thousands of dollars over the decades. By the end, the distance between these friends was over $1,400,000. Same salary, same start, and yet wildly, almost unfairly different endings. Most people believe wealth comes from picking one perfect, magical investment. The cold math says something far less glamorous and far more repeatable. Three quiet habits did almost all of the heavy lifting, not talent. And anyone watching this right now can copy every single one of them. Let me show you exactly how $50,000 quietly became $2 million. Here's the uncomfortable part nobody selling you a course wants to admit. The $50,000 was never the thing that mattered most. What mattered was what each woman did on the very next Monday. Renee looked at her $50,000 and decided she just wanted to feel safe. She parked most of it in cash and waited for the perfect moment. Tanya invested hers immediately, proud and excited, certain she was finally ahead. Maya did something that looked, honestly, almost boring by comparison. She built one simple system, then she got completely out of her own way. That single choice was worth more than any stock tip you will ever hear. Because the real enemy of your money is not the market at all. The real enemy is the nervous person who checks the account and reacts. Most people lose their $2 million to their own trembling hands. The gap between Maya and her friends was never about being smarter. It was about designing a life where the good decisions happened automatically. These three women give us a rare, clean experiment in ordinary money. So before you dismiss any of this as too simple, hear what the data shows. Let's meet all three women properly because the details actually matter here. Maya worked as a nurse and earned about $60,000 a year. Renee earned $60,000 too, working as an office manager downtown. Tanya earned $60,000 as well, running a small marketing team. None of them ever cracked six figures during these 30 years. All three inherited the same $50,000 from the same aunt. The aunt split it evenly, $50,000 each, on the exact same day. So we can hold income and starting money perfectly still and watch behavior. Maya was not the most ambitious of the three, and that surprised everyone. Renee was the careful one, the planner, the reader of every fine print. Tanya was the boldest, the one who loved a good, exciting bet. On paper, Tanya should have won this race by a mile. Instead, her boldness became the exact thing that quietly sank her. Renee's caution, the trait she was proudest of, cost her the most. And Maya's boredom, the trait nobody envied, made her a millionaire twice over. That reversal is the whole lesson, and the math will prove every word. All three women wanted the same thing, a comfortable, secure retirement. All three believed they were making a smart, responsible choice. Only one of them was actually right, and it was the boring one. Notice that none of them needed a finance degree to succeed. The winning path was available to every single one of them equally. Keep those three women in mind as we walk through the numbers. Let's start with the first habit, the one absolutely everyone underestimates. Maya automated her deposit before she ever saw a dollar of it. Every single payday, $500 moved on its own into her investments. She never chose to invest, and she never chose to skip a single month. The decision was made exactly once, then it ran quietly for 30 years. This is the boring habit that turns a normal salary into serious money. Run the numbers, and the reason becomes almost embarrassingly obvious. Maya started with $50,000 and added $500 each month. At a 10% long-term return, watch what those tiny deposits become. After 10 years, her account had grown to roughly $130,000. 10 years in, it honestly felt like almost nothing was happening. That slow first decade is exactly where most people quit in frustration. After 20 years, that same quiet system crossed $700,000. The growth had suddenly stopped feeling slow and started feeling unstoppable. After 30 years, Maya was sitting on nearly $2 million. The number that built it was $500 she barely ever felt. Here's what nobody tells you about that $500 habit. The power was never the amount, it was the fact that she never decided. Every manual decision is a fresh chance to say not this month. Automation removed the decision, so the deposit never had to survive her mood. Think about how many months you would have skipped over 30 years. A car repair here, a holiday there, and the habit quietly dies. Maya's transfer did not care about her mood, her fear, or her excuses. It just moved $500 while she slept, 12 times a year. 360 deposits happened without a single act of willpower. That is the entire secret of the first habit in one sentence. Renee, meanwhile, was still waiting for a smarter time to begin. She kept her $50,000 safe in savings and planned to invest it soon. Soon became a year, and a year quietly became 11 long years. By the time she finally started, she had lost 11 years of growth. 11 years at 10% nearly triples your money on its own. Her $50,000 could have become over $140,000 just waiting. Instead, it sat in cash, slowly losing ground to inflation every year. Her caution didn't protect her, it silently cost her a small fortune. That is the hidden price of waiting for the perfect entry point. There is never a clean starting gun that tells you now is safe. The perfect moment is a story we tell ourselves to justify doing nothing. The first habit is simply this: automate the deposit, then forget it exists. Now look at the second habit, the one that leaks the most money. Maya put every automatic deposit into one low-cost index fund. That fund owned a tiny slice of 500 of America's biggest companies. When you own 500 companies, no single failure can wipe you out. Her total fee was about 0.03% per year. On $100,000, that fee costs her about $30 annually. $30 a year to own a piece of the entire economy. Tanya did something that felt far smarter and more sophisticated. She hired an advisor and bought funds charging 1.5%. 1.5% sounds tiny, almost too small to even notice. That is exactly why it is the most expensive number in personal finance. Let me show you what that little fee actually does over a lifetime. Take $50,000 growing at 10% for 40 full years. In Maya's cheap index fund, it becomes about $2.3 million. In Tanya's expensive fund, that same money becomes only $1.3 million. The fee didn't cost Tanya a little, it cost her nearly $1 million. $956,000 vanished quietly into someone else's pocket. She never once saw it leave because it was skimmed silently every year. A tiny percentage taken every year becomes an avalanche over decades. Most people think a 1% fee simply costs them 1%. In reality, it can eat a full third of your entire final fortune. The fee compounds against you exactly the way returns compound for you. Every dollar taken in fees is a dollar that never compounds again. Over 40 years, that stolen dollar would have multiplied more than 40 times. So a $1 fee today is really a $40 loss tomorrow. Here's what actually happens inside a high-fee fund over a lifetime. The advisor gets rich slowly, and the client gets poorer than they realize. Tanya thought she was buying expertise, but she was mostly buying costs. The uncomfortable truth is that most expensive funds do not beat the cheap one. Over any 20-year stretch, the simple index fund beats most professionals. You are paying a premium price for below-average results, year after year. The second habit is brutally simple: own everything and pay almost nothing. A low-cost index fund is not exciting, and that is the entire point. Boring, cheap, and broad quietly beats clever, expensive, and narrow every time. Maya kept her costs near zero, so nearly every dollar stayed hers. That single choice added roughly $1 million over her lifetime. Now we arrive at the third habit, the hardest one of all three. The third habit is to do absolutely nothing when everyone else panics. This sounds laughably easy until the day your account drops in half. That day always comes, and it always comes more than once. Over Maya's 30 years, the market crashed hard at least 4 separate times. Each crash, her $2 million plan looked temporarily like a total disaster. Each crash, the news screamed that this time was truly, genuinely different. Each crash, every instinct in her body begged her to sell and hide. Maya's system kept buying anyway, quietly, on every single payday. When prices crashed, her $500 simply bought more shares on sale. She never logged into panic, and she never sold in fear. She treated the crashes as a discount, not as an emergency. Tanya did the exact opposite, and it cost her almost everything. When the market fell 40%, Tanya sold to stop the bleeding. The pain of watching the losses felt genuinely unbearable to her. She promised herself she would get back in when things finally felt safe. But things only felt safe again after prices had already fully doubled. Tanya sold low, waited on the sidelines, and then bought back high. She did the most natural thing in the world, and it was exactly backward. This mistake is so common it has a name: the behavior gap. Here is what the behavior gap costs a completely normal investor. Over 20 years, the market itself returned about 8% every year. The average real investor earned closer to 4.5% instead. That gap of roughly 3.5% sounds almost harmless. On $50,000 over 30 years, watch what it quietly destroys. At 8%, that money grows to over $500,000. At 4.5%, it limps to under $200,000. The same market handed one investor nearly triple the money of the other. The only difference between them was behavior, not intelligence or income. Tanya was not stupid. She was simply human at the worst moment. Maya didn't beat the market. She simply refused to interrupt it. Most people think the real danger is being invested during a crash. The real danger is not being invested when the recovery suddenly hits. And the recovery never sends you a warning before it arrives. Now here's the fact almost no one on the internet will show you. The market's very best days hide directly inside its scariest weeks. If you missed just the 10 best days over 30 years, look closely. Your total return would have been cut almost exactly in half. 10 days out of roughly 7,500 held half of your entire fortune. Miss the best 30 days and you lose over 80% of your gains. 30 days across 3 decades erasing 80% of everything you built. So the obvious plan is to skip the bad days and keep the good ones. That plan is completely impossible, and the reason is almost cruel. 76% of the market's best days happen during a bear market. They happen in the exact weeks when selling feels the most reasonable. 7 of the 10 best days landed within 2 weeks of the worst days. The best day and the worst day are practically next-door neighbors. You cannot flee the storm without also fleeing the sunshine right behind it. When Tanya sold to escape the worst days, she also fled the best ones. Her fear locked her out of the exact days that billed $2 million. She was out of the market for the single biggest rebound of the decade. That one missed rebound alone changed the ending of her entire story. Think about what that really demands from a normal human being. It demands that you stay invested on the single worst day of the year. It demands that you keep buying while every headline screams, collapse. It demands that you ignore the friend who already sold everything. This is why so few people ever capture the full market return. The knowledge is free, but the emotional discipline is genuinely rare. Maya was not fearless during those crashes, not even close. She was simply protected by a system that acted before her fear could. Her fear showed up right on schedule, every single time. Her automation just refused to give that fear a steering wheel. This is the counterintuitive truth sitting at the center of everything. The market pays the most to the people who do the very least. The reward does not go to the fastest hands or the sharpest minds. It goes to the person calm enough to sit perfectly, boringly still. Doing nothing feels lazy, but in investing, stillness is a rare, valuable skill. Every instinct you have during a crash is pointing you the wrong way. Your brain evolved to run from danger, not to buy more of it. Selling in a crash feels responsible, but it is the costliest move you can make. The investor who wins is the one who overrides that ancient screaming alarm. Maya's real superpower was never intelligence. It was simply staying seated. She let 30 years of hidden best days quietly do their work. While Tanya reacted and Renee waited, Maya just kept sitting still. That, more than anything else, is how 50,000 grew into 2 million. Stillness is not passive. It is the hardest active choice in all of investing. Let me hand you the one shortcut that makes all of this click. It is a tiny piece of math called the Rule of 72. Divide 72 by your return, and you get your doubling time. At 10%, your money doubles roughly every 7 years. So 50,000 becomes 100,000 in about 7 years. 100,000 becomes 200,000 7 years after that. Then 400, then 800, then over 1.5 million. Each double is bigger than every single double that came before it. That is why the last 10 years look almost magical. Your money makes more in the final decade than the first 20 combined. Most people quit long before that final explosive doubling ever arrives. They see slow early growth and decide the whole thing is broken. Maya understood that the boring early years were buying the explosive later ones. Picture the growth as a curve, not a straight, steady line. For years it looks flat, crawling, almost insultingly slow. Then it bends upward, sharply like the blade of a hockey stick. The flat part is where discipline is tested and most people fail. The steep part is where the $2 million is actually made. You have to survive the boring part to ever reach the exciting part. There is another quiet engine working the entire time called dividends. Those 500 companies pay Maya a slice of their profits every year. Maya reinvested every dividend, buying even more shares automatically. Those new shares then paid their own dividends, which bought even more. It is compounding stacked on top of compounding, running silently underneath. Roughly a third of the market's long-term return comes from reinvested dividends. Tanya, sitting in cash after her panic, earned no dividends at all. Renee, waiting in savings, watched inflation quietly eat her purchasing power. At 3% inflation, cash loses roughly half its value in 24 years. So Renee's safe 50,000 was actually shrinking the entire time. Safety in cash is a slow, invisible, and very expensive kind of loss. Now let me take you inside one specific crash to make this real. Imagine the market falling 40% over just a few brutal months. Maya's account dropped from 400,000 to under 250,000. On paper, she had just lost more than her original inheritance. Her hands wanted to sell, her stomach was in knots, the news was grim. But her automatic transfer fired again, buying shares at a deep discount. 18 months later, the market had fully recovered and then climbed higher. Her discounted shares from the crash became some of her best performers. Tanya, in that same crash, sold everything near the very bottom. She locked in a real loss to escape a temporary one. She sat in cash through the entire recovery, waiting for a signal. By the time she felt brave again, prices were far above where she sold. That single crash is where most of their final gap was born. This is why the third habit is worth more than the other two combined. You can automate deposits and pick cheap funds and still ruin it all. One panicked sell in one bad year can undo 3 good decades. The behavior gap is not a knowledge problem, it is an emotion problem. Everybody knows you should buy low and sell high. Almost nobody can actually do it when their money is on fire. That is exactly why automation and stillness beat willpower every time. You are not trying to be brave, you are trying to be absent. The best investors are often the ones who forget the account exists. There is even a study of accounts that performed the very best. Many of the top performers were people who had simply forgotten their logins. Some of the very best returns belonged to investors who had passed away. Their accounts could not panic, could not tinker, and could not sell. Forced stillness, by accident, beat almost every active, attentive investor. Let that sink in for just a moment before we continue. The winning move was so simple that a forgotten account did it perfectly. Now let me make the whole plan almost insultingly easy to copy. Step 1. Set up one automatic transfer on your payday, any amount. Even $50 a month builds the habit that the money will follow. Step 2. Send that transfer into one broad, low-cost index fund. Look for a fee under 0.1% and stop there. Step 3. Turn on automatic dividend reinvestment and then close the app. That is the entire system that quietly built Maya's $2 million. It fits on a single index card and requires no ongoing genius. The hard part was never the knowledge, it was the discipline to leave it alone. Now let me put all 3 habits together into one clean picture. Habit 1. Maya automated $500 into the market every single payday. Habit 2. She used a low-cost index fund and kept nearly every dollar. Habit 3. She did absolutely nothing through 4 brutal market crashes. No stock picking, no timing, no genius, and no special access anywhere. Renee waited too long and lost 11 priceless years of compounding. Tanya paid high fees and then panicked at the worst possible moment. Same $50,000, same salary, 3 completely different endings. Maya finished near 2 million, Renee near 600,000, Tanya near 200,000. The difference was never the money, it was only the 3 quiet habits. And every single one of them is free, simple, and available to you today. You do not need a bigger salary to start this exact system tonight. You need 1 automatic transfer, 1 cheap fund, and 1 very still hand. Here's the part that should make you feel powerful, not hopelessly behind. The most effective wealth habits require almost no skill or brilliance at all. They require a single decision made once, then protected from your own emotions. If Maya could do it on a nurse's salary, the math does not care who you are. The $2 million was never reserved for the rich or the lucky few. It was quietly waiting for the person disciplined enough to be a little boring. So start the transfer, pick the boring fund, and then truly leave it alone. Let time and stillness do the heavy lifting you were never meant to carry. Start today, because the first habit only works with the years you still have. Every month you wait is a month Renee already showed you how to waste. Now I already know the objection forming in your mind right now. You are thinking you do not have a spare $50,000. Here is the truth that should genuinely relieve you. You do not need it. The $50,000 only shaved a few years off Maya's timeline. The 3 habits do the real work whether you start with $50,000 or 50. Run it again with 0 savings and just $500 a month. At 10%, that alone becomes over $1 million in 30 years. The lump sum was a head start, not the actual engine. The engine was the automatic deposit, the low fee, and the still hand. Maybe you are 45 and feel like the window has already closed. The best time to start was 20 years ago. That part is true. The second best time is this exact payday, and that part is yours. A shorter runway just means the deposit habit matters even more. You trade some of compounding's magic for a slightly larger monthly transfer. The math still bends in your favor the moment you begin. And maybe you are 25 thinking you have plenty of time to wait. That thought is the single most expensive mistake in this entire video. Your early dollars are the ones that get to double the most times. A dollar invested at 25 doubles roughly 2 extra times over 1 invested at 39. Those extra doublings are worth more than any raise you will ever earn. Time is the one ingredient you can never buy back later. So wherever you are standing today, the instruction is exactly the same. Do not wait for permission, a windfall, or a perfect moment. Start the boring system now and let the years quietly compound. If this made the hidden math finally feel simple, do one small thing for me. Subscribe to Maya Wealth and hit the notification bell right now. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day. No hustle culture, no shame, just the numbers that most people never see. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's polished sales pitch. Wealth was never about being the smartest person in the room. It was always about being the calmest person over the longest stretch of time.